right, folks, welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take a look at some of the most interesting happenings in sports.
And today we're diving into something pretty wild.
Yeah, it's not every day a player in his prime just up and retires, especially with time still left on his contract.
Absolutely, especially a player like Christian Standhardinger. I mean, this guy was a force on the court.
Seriously, talk about a walking highlight reel.
Yeah.
But he just announced he's done with the PBA, and he's still got a contract with Terrafirma running through the end of 2024.
Yeah, so the big question is why? What would make a player like Standhardinger walk away from the game and a paycheck like that? That's what we're going to try and figure out today.
Yeah, it's definitely not your typical retirement scenario. This isn't some veteran winding down his career. Standhardinger was traded from Barangay Ginebra to Terrafirma just earlier this year, and that trade was a head-scratcher to begin with.
For sure. I think a lot of people were surprised by that move.
Yeah, remind us about that trade.
Oh.
Who else was involved and what made it such a big deal?
Well, Ginebra sent Standhardinger to Terrafirma, and in return, they got Stanley Pringle, Isaac Goes, and Stephen Holt.
Right.
On the surface, it looks like a pretty straightforward talent swap, but it definitely raised some eyebrows.
It did.
I mean, each team in the PBA can only have a certain number of imports. Those are players who weren't Filipino citizens.
Right.
So this trade wasn't just about those individual players, it was about roster strategy and how each team was planning to use their imports for the rest of the season.
So the trade happens. Standhardinger ends up on a new team, and then boom, retirement. And you think there could be a connection there?
It's hard to say for sure, but it's definitely a piece of the puzzle when a player gets traded, especially mid-season. It can be a really tough adjustment.
Oh, absolutely.
New coach, new teammates, new system. It takes time to get comfortable. And on top of that, trades can be tough on a player's ego.
Debbie, you got to think about that.
These guys are competitors. They want to be valued. They want to feel like they're a key part of the team.
Makes sense.
So if Standhardinger felt like this trade was a demotion or didn't fit with his long-term goals,
Yeah.
I could see how that might factor into his decision.
That's a really good point. But let's step back for a second and think about some of the other reasons a player might choose to retire before their contract is up. I mean, this is a guy who clearly loves the game, so it's got to be more than just wanting a break, right?
Oh, absolutely. You have to consider the mental and physical toll that professional basketball takes on your body.
Right.
It's a grueling schedule, constant pressure to perform, and the risk of serious injury is always there.
It's true. We see it all the time.
Maybe Standhardinger was dealing with something we don't know about a nagging injury burnout, or maybe even family considerations that needed to take priority.
Yeah, that's something we often forget about as fans. There's a whole life outside the court.
Exactly.
But what about the financial side of things? Walking away from a contract like that means leaving a lot of money on the table.
True, but it's not unprecedented. Sometimes players reach a point where the personal cost outweighs the financial gain.
I guess that makes sense.
Maybe Standhardinger had other opportunities lined up, business ventures, endorsements, coaching, who knows?
That's true.
Or maybe he just decided that his well-being, his mental and physical health was more important than the money.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack here. We've got a surprise retirement, a recent trade, and a whole bunch of unanswered questions. But that's what makes this so interesting, right?
Oh, exactly. It makes you think about the human side of the game.
It does.
It's not just about stats and wins and losses. It's about people's lives and their dreams and their goals.
Well said. So here's something for everyone listening to think about. What does Standhardinger's retirement say about the PBA as a whole?
That's a good question.
Is this a sign that players are starting to prioritize different things? Are we seeing a shift in power dynamics between players and teams?
Or maybe it's just part of the league's natural evolution.
Lots to ponder, folks. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
And until next time, keep exploring the game beyond the court.
We'll see you then.
See you then!